Hello, I think I'm live. I've got my nail polish remover here. Going to take my nail polish off while I talk to you, and I'm talking about emotional eating. And I can tell you I've got some experience with this, especially when I was younger. I had some really bad stages where that was a real problem for me, and it feels really out of control if you are in that phase, and it does not feel good. So. Um, yeah, that and sugar to the two things I want to talk about today. So thank you for joining me. If you're watching live, that's awesome. My name is Naomi Stockman. I am a clinical hypnotherapist and I do specialize in anxiety, depression, PTSD, eating disorders, and addiction. And look, emotional eating affects so many people. It's not something that people really talk about all that much. We just, food's very social for a start. But when we have emotional eating, it's where we're kind of binging, I guess, and binging. And it's often driven by a sugar addiction, which is why I've kind of combined those two topics. So I did a program once with another lady, and program was called Are You Hungry? And it was basically she had been like a person that followed diets, and I've never been a dieter. And her thing was that she would always be restricting herself, like trying not to eat certain things, like don't eat this or don't eat that or only eat this or counting calories or whatever. And the minute that she self-regulated and actually listened to her body and asked the question like, Naomi, are you hungry? And if the answer is no, you don't eat it. Now, what I was trying to explain to her is that when we have emotional eating, we know we're not hungry. The problem is that often you can't stop yourself. You can't help yourself from actually overeating or going to the fridge or going to whatever, because it's a form of like emotional comfort. And there's craving and binging, and look, sometimes there's purging and things like that. And it can feel very shameful and out of control. And yeah, all that sort of stuff. Now, the unconscious mind runs our life, and I've said this to you all before. The unconscious mind runs everything in our life, and it also runs our body, our digestion, all our organs, our breathing. Like you don't think about digesting your food or your heart beating, it just happens, and that's the unconscious mind. So, what I want to talk today is about a couple of things. So I'll break it up a little bit. The first thing is I did a hypnosis yesterday for a guy that has a Coca-Cola addiction. And I just went and had coffee actually with a lady that I know, and her husband has a Coca-Cola addiction. And that can be a really big addiction, whether you're drinking Coke Zero or real sugared Coke, it's definitely not good for us. And the unconscious mind is involved in addiction, obviously. It's not just people used to think, oh, it's just a physical addiction. But no, most addictions actually have the strongest part of it is more the habit part of the addiction. And so that's why hypnosis can help with those things. So when you go to have a drink of Coke, for example, if you're a Coke addict, or for you, it might be something else, there'll be a trigger for it. It'll be a certain feeling. You might be aware of it or you might not. It might be a thought, it might be a picture, it might be anything. It'll be some kind of something that tells you it's time to have a drink. Now, for the guy yesterday that I treated, look, I've got all my nail polish off now. He actually had uh, drink equals Coke. So anytime he thought to himself, oh, I'll go get a drink, walked straight past the water, went to get the Coca-Cola. And that meant that he said that he actually was spending $300 a month on the vending machine. So it's a huge amount of money. Um, Interestingly, he told me that he used to own a Harley, but he'd sold it. And I said, well, imagine what you could do with $300 a month. So it's interesting to note where we spend our money with when it comes to food and drink and stuff like that. It's just, literally you put it down the toilet into your body, then down the toilet. So yeah, so back to the Coke. When I do a hypnosis for anything to do with addiction, I run through, where, how do you know it's time to have that, and we go through all the triggers and what's nice about it, what does it give you, and all the what's it mean and everything like that. So there's a whole stack of conversation that happens before I do hypnosis for addiction. But his thing was like, that, the sound, sound when you open it, and the fizz, and that kind of bitter taste in your mouth, and the everything like that. So he had like a whole stack of stuff. And when I looked with him through, later in the session, we were going through, and the part of him that was looking for that, it was, bringing like an uplift into his life, into his day, something to look forward to. And it was also the word comfort came up. And so that's what made me think about this comfort eating, that it's got that, that association, that like it's something for you. Now, interestingly, we can give ourselves comfort in ways that are safe for us, that, compared to something else. So for somebody that might be, that's lost comfort in other areas of their life, like relationships or whatever, sometimes the comfort of eating can be the replacement. And I know that when I've had issues with food, it's always been when I have been broken up or feeling unloved. And so food is love is a really strong message that can be present with people. Or maybe, for people, say, for example, when you think about a habit like drinking Coca-Cola, you can sometimes pull it back to your childhood. Like Coke might have been a treat on a tough day, or a treat when you did something good. It might be celebrating something. It's a birthday party, so you can have Coca-Cola. It could be family gatherings and happiness. And actually, the client yesterday, he did bring up, he said, I hope I'm not insulting you by suggesting that you can remember ads from the 90s. And I'm like, I'm not telling you how old I am, but I can definitely remember ads from the 90s. And he was saying, like all that people in bikinis and smiling and laughing and throwing around beach balls and all that kind of stuff. Like the association was not that you have it when you're having fun, but that it gives you fun, it gives you connection. And, he was saying that like when he starts thinking of getting up and getting it is when he's at work and he's at his desk and it's just dull and monotone and there's just nothing going on. You're just there and it's boring and whatever. So it's like that uplift of having a Coke, because Coke's just this amazing substance that brings so much joy. Or that's what the ads have you believe. And remember, we might think that advertising, that we're smart enough to not be programmed by advertising, but actually, advertising is hypnotic and subliminal, and the repetition of it does get into our unconscious mind, whether we want it to or not. So that's something that is related to binge eating, because it can be for comfort. It can be to break a state of boredom or down movement, in your energy, and to get that energy up, have that uplift. I mean, it doesn't just work for Coke. It can work for any kind of thing, especially sugary products, which, that they're the ones that we go to, isn't it? Sugar, anything. I always say to people, if it's white and it's crystallized, it's addictive, right? That's basically the substance rule, and sugar is definitely white and crystallized. So the other thing to think about with binge eating, and this is covered by Bessel van der Kolk in his book, The Body Keeps the Score, and that's that unresolved emotions and traumatic events and all of that stuff, that emotional baggage is stored in our body. And chronic stress, trauma, all of that sort of stuff causes, it's linked to digestive issues and all sorts of stuff. So when we have like an experience in our childhood that's not that great, that might not feel safe or whatever, sometimes we develop our own ways to comfort ourselves and be able to cope with things. And that might be through food, through eating, through eating specific things. I remember another client that I did quite a lot of sessions with, and she used to, on the way home from school, occasionally, if she had some money, she used to buy a block of dark cooking chocolate and then go hide somewhere and eat the whole block. And that was her, that one treat that she had, where she could just feel just amazing for a short time while she had this chocolate. And you can imagine that that would be something that her unconscious mind would remember. I'm safe here eating this chocolate. And therefore, as an adult, she did have problems with eating a lot of chocolate. And it does affect you if you can't stop eating chocolate. I mean, literally to the point where you're sick, you know. It's not good. The problem with this kind of emotional eating is that it doesn't help to go on a diet. You won't be able to stick to it because sooner or later the emotion will outweigh the the craving will outweigh the resolve because willpower is not a permanent thing. No one's got enough willpower to do anything. I always say willpower lasts about 3 minutes. And for me, sometimes it's lucky if it does last 3 minutes, it can be shorter than that even. So, yeah, whatever. Some of my clients say that with drug addiction, for example, that the minute they get the fuck it moment, that it's all over from there. And then we talk about like how do you know that it's that moment where you reach that point and what causes you to get there. But basically, everybody has that effort moment where you get to that point. So the relationship with our unconscious mind has got a job, and that is to keep us safe. And it does a beautiful job of that, but it doesn't always do it in the way that we'd like it to, and it doesn't always do it without causing secondary issues like problems. Um, so if you dearly want to make a change and it's not happening, it's likely that your unconscious mind's blocking that. And I'm just waiting for my nails to dry a bit before I put a top coat on here. Okay, so basically, the unconscious mind runs our body, and we don't have a conscious awareness of that. It if you probably know this yourself. If you're feeling anxious, your stomach tightens. If you feel heartbreak, then you lose your appetite. I know a girlfriend of mine just lost like 10 kilos going through a breakup. And she was like, the one good thing about this is that I've lost all this weight and without even trying. And if we're exhausted, we do crave sugar, and that's not random. That's the connection between mind, emotions, body, and it's basically saying, well, you don't have energy, you need energy. But what's even more fascinating is that the unconscious mind doesn't just differentiate between physical and emotional threats. So if you are emotionally unsafe, like you're feeling rejected or overwhelmed or unworthy, then your brain will actually perceive that this is something that's happening to you. And so therefore it's got a job to do, which is protect you. And that might mean numbing you. And numbing can take the form of distraction. Like we do it with our kids, don't we? Like, do you want a lollipop, or, everything will be all right. Like here, come and, I'll give you something nice. What about an ice cream? The treat, the reward, the distraction. And other times it can be that your unconscious mind decides that it wants to store fat because it thinks it's preparing for something. So craving sugar can be also the need for a dopamine hit, and it just gives you a quick fix. It's a quick fix. It's not a real fix, just a quick temporary fix. So if our unconscious mind's running the show, uh, it might seem like, well, if my unconscious is running the show, then what can I possibly do about it? But there's lots of stuff that we can do to change our unconscious mind. Now, there's a thing called neuroplasticity, and that means that the brain can absolutely rewire itself. And we can break old patterns, whether it's a Coke addiction, a sugar addiction, binge eating, emotional eating, any of that kind of stuff. Even for bulimia or anorexia, we can break those neurological pathways and those habits and then create new ones. And that's really, really powerful to know. So, I mean, there are some things you can do that will help you to at least get some conscious awareness of what is going on for you. So, firstly, instead of, beating yourself up and feeling really bad about it, just try and identify, and you can do this via a food diary. Like if you know that you're binging or you're craving or you're doing whatever, doing the thing you don't want to do, having the thing you don't want to have, do some back work to see, like, how do I know when it is time for me to do this behavior or have this thing. What's my triggers? What's going on for me emotionally? Is there a thought? Is there a feeling? Is there a sensation in my body? What is it that is going on for me on a physical and emotional and, mental level when this happens, when I'm doing this thing? Then thinking about, like, I always like to sort of think that there's always a root cause to everything, and that the problem is never really the problem. That's one of my little sayings. And so sometimes it's about finding what the root cause is, and it could be something really unexpected. For example, it could be, and this is really, really common. People come in for, like, I want to quit smoking, and then go back to, my parents separated. We're like, right, that was unexpected. Or they come in to quit, eating McDonald's, and then it's like, um, you know, going back to a divorce or something like that. Something not great, or even just like I was bullied at school, or, things come up when you start opening the box, the Pandora's box. And people are always wanting to get help when they come to me. But the truth is that the unconscious mind sometimes just says no. And I'll say something like, in a moment, I'm going to ask the first question, which just let me know what drops in for you, asking your unconscious mind, is it okay for person's name to release their addiction or their habit of, drinking Coke today? And let me know what drops in for you. And the person might say no. And this is quite common. They might say no because the unconscious mind actually is saying no. And often they don't even remember that they said that at the end of the session, because, by after that, we have to go on a wandering workaround through the hypnotic process to go there. But healing the root cause is really important, because there is always a problem under the problem, a root cause of the problem. So you can also retrain your brain. So, like I said, the neuroplasticity means that you can make new neural pathways. So you can retrain your brain using, I always say that there's only a few, there's the language of the unconscious is the imagination. And with imagination, emotion, repetition, and trance, you can reprogram your unconscious mind completely. So that's advertising does that. The repetition, a Mars a day helps you work, rest, and play. That's all great. That one stuck in my mind, obviously, as a song. But the repetition part is balanced out by the emotion. So if something happened once and it was high emotion, it will make a neuroplasticity change. If something happens with low emotion but high repetition, it blends in there. And then when you add in imagination, so the imagination is really, really powerful. And that's why using visualization techniques is really good. And they do this with Olympians. They get them to imagine running the race, and all the neurons are firing, and it's as if they're actually physically training. So when you think about it like that, that's visualization so important. And when we worry, we often visualize bad things, and sometimes people come in with like preset beliefs, and I'll say, so you want to lose weight, for example, like we're going to do a hypnosis on weight loss. And I'll say, tell me a little bit about your lifestyle. And they'll say, like, I come from a fat family or a fat house. Like, everyone in my family is fat. Like, that's just what it is. And then that forms part of the identity. So for you to create a change, you actually have to visualize something else, something different to what it is that you've been programmed with. So if you've been programmed with, I'm a fat person in a fat family living in a fat house, there might need to be some changes to that, and being able to imagine what that would look like, feel like, sound like, to have something different. And the brain really loves to receive that imaginative thing. So you can teach your mind new things. The other thing is to connect with your body. So instead of fighting, say, a craving, like, that sugar craving or the Coke craving, connect with your body and just ask, what am I really feeling? What do I really need right now? Do I need a break? Do I need to get out in the sunshine? Do I need to go for a walk? Do I need a hug? Do I need to connect with someone? Do I need to be heard? Do I need am I thirsty? A lot of times people are just thirsty when they're doing something else. So give yourself a few other options first. Like, for example, if my son says, "Can I have something from the snack cupboard?" I say to him, "Well, actually, I'd like you to eat a carrot, have a glass of milk, and I can kind of give him some other stuff there because what he's really saying is, I need something to eat, but his mind is imagining snack cupboard. So he's not going to be happy about the carrot. He's actually not imagining the carrot. So you could start using the visualization of those different alternatives as well, which obviously we do in hypnosis. And the whole time that you're dealing with anything to do with food, etc., be very compassionate with yourself and your body. I was just having a conversation this morning with a lady. Her partner's quite a large man, and she said, look, about herself that she's put on a few kilos, and I was, talking to her, and then subsequently talking to someone else about the fact that we sometimes beat ourselves up about our body and ourself instead of having that compassion, even if it's, you know, just judgment of self. And the lady I was speaking to this morning, she was saying, her husband, even though he's quite big, he thinks he's very, very, very attractive and very desirable, and he's got no trouble at all with his physical appearance. And she said it's just great how, and she said how men can have this, and I said, yeah, it's called reverse anorexia. Only men have it. And I can say that here, but yeah. So in conclusion, before I wrap up, because look, I've got my nails painted and they're going to be drying for the next 5 minutes or so, but yeah, bit of self-care there for me. Yeah, if you're looking at why am I binge eating, I want to stop binge eating, stop addiction to sugar, stop addiction to certain foods like chocolate or soft drink or whatever. It's not a willpower thing. You are not a weak person. That's not it at all. Your unconscious mind's simply doing its job, which is running your life, and it might need some new information. It might maybe time to reprogram your unconscious mind to align, so that you've got your goals that in your mind are aligned with how your unconscious is running your life. So I'm Naomi Stockman from My Local Hypnosis. I'm one of the group experts. You can reach out to me at any time, and have a beautiful whatever is left of today. Bye.